My girlfriend told her friends, "Men are so simple, a little crying, some fake gratitude, and they will give you anything." I overheard everything and decided to stop all financial support. Now she is spiraling. This is going to be a long one, but I need to get this off my chest and get some perspective from people who aren't involved in the situation. My girlfriend Sarah and I have been together for almost 3 years now. When we first started dating, everything felt perfect. She was funny, ambitious, and we had this incredible chemistry that I had never experienced before. We would spend entire weekends together just talking and laughing, and I genuinely thought I had found my person. About 6 months into our relationship, Sarah opened up about her financial situation. Her parents had basically cut her off after she chose a major they didn't approve of, and she was struggling to pay for her senior year of college. She also didn't have a car, which made getting to her internship and classes really difficult. She mentioned having severe anxiety around job interviews and workplace environments, so traditional part-time work wasn't really an option for her. I was in a good place financially at the time. I had been working in tech for about 5 years and had been pretty careful with my money. When I saw how stressed she was about potentially having to drop out or take on massive student loans, I offered to help. It started small, covering a textbook here, a car repair there, but eventually, I suggested paying her tuition for her final year so she could focus on her studies and internship without the constant financial stress. She was incredibly grateful, or at least that is how it seemed. She'd tear up when talking about how much it meant to her, how she had never had someone support her dreams like that. When she needed a reliable car to get to her internship, I helped her get a decent used Honda and took over the payments. It felt good to be able to help someone I loved achieve their goals. For almost 2 years, I covered her tuition payments and car expenses. We are talking about roughly $2,800 a month between the two. It was a significant chunk of my income, but I had adjusted my lifestyle to make it work. I moved to a smaller apartment, stopped eating out as much, and basically reorganized my entire budget around supporting her education. Sarah seemed genuinely appreciative throughout this time. She would cook for me, plan thoughtful dates within our limited budget, and would often talk about how she wanted to pay me back once she graduated and found a job. She made me feel like we were a team working toward our shared future. Last Tuesday changed everything. I had gotten home from work earlier than usual and decided to surprise Sarah by cooking dinner. She was in the living room on a video call with her college friends, and I could hear them talking while I was in the kitchen. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but our apartment isn't that big, and she had her volume up pretty loud. One of her friends was asking about her internship and how she was managing everything financially. That is when I heard Sarah laugh and say something that made my blood run cold. "Oh, you mean my personal ATM? He is so pathetic. Honestly, he thinks he is being this amazing boyfriend, but he is just a walking wallet. The guy has zero personality beyond his bank account." I froze with a spatula in my hand, thinking maybe I would misheard, but she kept going. "I mean, he is useful for now, but God, he is so boring. All he does is work and worry about me. He has no friends, no hobbies, nothing interesting about him. I am planning to dump him as soon as I graduate and get established in my career. I figure I have got maybe 6 more months of playing the grateful girlfriend before I can finally be free." Her friends were laughing, and one of them said something about how lucky she was to have found such an easy target. Sarah responded, "Right? Men are so simple. A little crying, some fake gratitude, and they will give you anything. He actually thinks I am going to marry him someday. It is almost sad how delusional he is." I stood there for probably 10 minutes after she hung up, just processing what I had heard. This person I had been supporting, sacrificing for, planning a future with, saw me as nothing more than a financial convenience. Everything I thought was real about our relationship was apparently just an elaborate performance. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think and figure out what I was going to do. For the next few days, I acted completely normal while internally making my decision. Every time she smiled at me or thanked me for something, I wondered how much of it was genuine, and how much was just her maintaining the act. The monthly payment for her tuition was due that Friday. I simply didn't make it. Same with her car payment the following Monday. I wanted to see how long it would take her to notice and what her reaction would be. She called me Thursday morning, and I could hear the panic in her voice. "Hey babe, I think there might be an issue with the tuition payment. The school sent me a notice that it is overdue. Did something happen with your bank account? I kept my voice calm and neutral. No. Nothing happened with my account. I just decided to stop making those payments. The silence on the other end lasted so long that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said, "What do you mean you decided to stop? We need to talk about this in person. We can talk, but my decision isn't changing. You made it pretty clear to your friends how you really feel about me and this relationship. I figured since I am just a boring ATM with no personality, you would prefer to handle your own finances from now on." I could hear her sharp intake of breath. She immediately started backtracking, saying it was all just venting to her friends, that she didn't mean any of it, that she was just stressed, and said things she didn't mean. But I had heard the genuine contempt in her voice during that conversation. That wasn't stress talking. That was her real opinion of me. We met for coffee that weekend, and she came prepared with a full performance. Tears, apologies, explanations about how she sometimes says things she doesn't mean when she is feeling overwhelmed. She begged me to reconsider, saying she couldn't finish school without my help, and that she really did love me. I let her finish, then told her that if she truly thought I was as pathetic and boring as she had described to her friends, she should be happy to have me out of her life. I wasn't going to continue supporting someone who had such obvious disdain for me. That was 3 weeks ago, and my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since. She has called, texted, and even had mutual friends reach out to try to convince me I am overreacting. But I know what I heard, and I know it was the truth. I am not posting this because I am having second thoughts. I am confident I made the right choice. I guess I just need to hear from other people that I am not crazy for ending things this way. Part of me feels guilty because I know she is probably going to have to drop out or take on debt she cannot handle. But I cannot keep supporting someone who sees me as nothing more than a financial resource. Has anyone else been in a situation like this? How do you move forward when you realize someone you loved never actually respected you? Update 1. It has been about 6 weeks since my last post, and I honestly thought things would have died down by now. I was very wrong. The first couple of weeks after our breakup were pretty much what I expected. Sarah tried every approach she could think of to get me to change my mind. She alternated between tearful apologies, angry accusations, and attempts to make me jealous by posting photos with other guys on social media. When I didn't respond to any of it, I thought she would eventually accept that we were done and move on. I was incredibly naive. 3 weeks ago, I started noticing Sarah in places where she had no reason to be. She showed up at the coffee shop I stop at every morning before work, a place she had never been interested in during our relationship, because she said their coffee was terrible. She was sitting in the corner with a book, pretending not to see me, but she was obviously watching my every move. Then she started appearing at my gym. We had never worked out together because she always said she preferred yoga classes at her own studio. Suddenly, she was there every day I was, always managing to use equipment near whatever machine I was on. When I switched my workout times, she somehow adjusted hers to match. The grocery store I had been shopping at for years became another one of her new hangout spots. She would position herself in aisles where she could accidentally run into me, then act surprised and try to start conversations about how much she missed me and how sorry she was. Last weekend, I decided I needed to get out of town for a few days to clear my head. I drove about 3 hours to a small mountain town where I had booked a cabin through Airbnb. I specifically chose somewhere remote and didn't tell anyone where I was going. I even turned off my location sharing and avoided posting anything on social media. On Saturday evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "The mountain air looks nice. I hope you are getting the space you need to think about us." I immediately checked outside and didn't see her car, but the message made it clear she somehow knew where I was. I spent the rest of the weekend looking over my shoulder and checking my car for tracking devices. I found nothing, but the paranoia was eating at me. When I got back to town, things escalated even further. I started hearing from mutual friends that Sarah was telling people her own version of our breakup story. According to her narrative, I was a controlling, manipulative person who had used financial support as a way to isolate her from her friends and family. She claimed I would threaten to cut off her tuition payments whenever she didn't do exactly what I wanted. The most disturbing part is that some people seem to be believing her. A few mutual acquaintances have been treating me differently, and I can see them whispering when they think I am not looking. She has managed to paint herself as the victim of financial abuse rather than someone who was caught mocking the person supporting her. Last Tuesday, my boss called me into his office for what he described as a wellness check. Apparently, someone had submitted an anonymous complaint to HR claiming I was exhibiting concerning behavior, and that there were worries about my mental state affecting my work performance. The complaint specifically mentioned that I had a history of using financial control in relationships and might be unstable following a recent breakup. My boss was clearly uncomfortable bringing this up, and he made it clear that my work performance hasn't actually been affected. But he had to address the complaint officially, and it is now part of my employment file. I am fairly certain Sarah was behind this, though I cannot prove it. The breaking point came last Friday. I was leaving work and found my car completely covered in sticky notes. They were all handwritten messages, some apologizing, some accusing me of abandoning her when she needed me most, and some just saying things like, "Please, just talk to me and you are destroying my life." Security cameras caught the incident, and campus security is treating it as vandalism. But Sarah was careful to only include her first name on the notes, so there is no definitive proof it was her. Though, honestly, who else would it be? I have started documenting everything, taking photos, saving screenshots of messages, keeping a log of where and when I see her. Multiple people have suggested I file for a restraining order, and I am seriously considering it. I never thought I would be in a situation where I had need legal protection from someone I used to love. The hardest part is that some tiny part of me actually feels guilty. I know she is probably struggling financially and academically after losing my support, and despite everything she said about me, I hate seeing anyone in that position. But I also know that staying in that relationship would have destroyed my self-respect completely. I have been thinking about what some of you said in response to my first post about recognizing manipulation tactics. Looking back, I can see so many red flags I ignored. The way she isolated me from my friends by always having emergencies when I had plans with them. How she would get upset if I spent money on anything for myself, saying it was selfish when she was struggling. The way she would bring up her financial stress whenever I seemed happy about something unrelated to her. I think the scariest part is realizing how completely I had reorganized my life around supporting her, and how she saw that devotion as weakness rather than love. I am not sure what I am looking for with this update. Maybe just validation that I am not losing my mind, and that this level of response isn't normal for a breakup. Has anyone dealt with an ex who couldn't accept that the relationship was over? How do you protect yourself when someone is determined to force their way back into your life? Update 2. I have been debating whether to post this update because some of what happened is pretty dark, but people have been asking for an update, and honestly, writing these posts has been therapeutic for me. After my last post, I followed everyone's advice and filed for a restraining order. The process took about 2 weeks, during which Sarah's behavior became even more erratic. She would somehow gotten hold of my work schedule and would be waiting in the parking lot when I left the office. She never approached me directly, but she had just sit in her car watching me, sometimes for hours. The restraining order was granted 3 weeks ago, and I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong again. 2 days after she was served with the paperwork, my life went completely off the rails. I woke up to 17 missed calls from my boss, my parents, and several coworkers. Apparently, someone had created fake social media profiles using my name and photos, and had spent the night sending explicit messages to female colleagues, former classmates, and even my boss's wife. The messages were disturbing enough that I cannot repeat most of them here, but they included detailed descriptions of sexual fantasies and threats about what I wanted to do to these women. The fake profiles also posted long rants about how women only wanted men for money and how they deserved to be taught lessons about using people. By the time I got to work that morning, HR was waiting for me. They had received screenshots of the messages from multiple people, and while they acknowledged that the profiles seemed fake, they had to treat the situation seriously. I was suspended pending an investigation into whether I had created the accounts myself. It took 4 days and a forensic examination of my personal devices to prove that I hadn't been behind the fake profiles. The IT team was eventually able to trace the accounts back to IP addresses at Sarah's apartment and the coffee shop where she had been spending most of her time. Even then, my company required me to attend counseling sessions before they would let me return to work. But the fake profiles were just the beginning. Sarah had apparently spent weeks researching my professional network and had started reaching out to people I had worked with in the past. She contacted my previous employers, claiming to be a journalist writing an article about workplace harassment and asking them to comment on my behavior toward female colleagues. She also found the LinkedIn profiles of women I had gone to college with and messaged them, claiming to be conducting a survey about experiences with financial abuse in relationships. She would specifically ask if they remembered me exhibiting any controlling behaviors during college. Most people either ignored these messages or immediately saw through them. But a few responded with concerns, which Sarah then screenshots and sent to my current employer as evidence of a pattern of problematic behavior. The most devastating thing she did was contact my mother. She called pretending to be a social worker, claiming that I had been reported for concerning behavior and that they needed to verify my mental health history. My mom, who was already worried because of the fake social media incident, spent an entire day convinced that I was having some kind of breakdown and needed immediate intervention. By the time I found out about that call and explained what was really happening, my mom had already contacted my sister and several family members to organize what she thought would be a mental health intervention. The confusion and embarrassment of having to explain the real situation to my entire family was almost worse than everything else combined. I finally decided to fight back, but in a legal way. I hired an attorney who specialized in harassment and cyberstalking cases. We were able to get documentation of everything Sarah had done: the fake profiles, the fraudulent contacts with my employers and family, even evidence that she had been following me in violation of the restraining order. My lawyer sent Sarah a cease and desist letter outlining all of her illegal activities and making it clear that we had evidence to support criminal charges if she continued. We also sent copies to her parents and the dean at her college. Since her behavior was affecting my employment and could be considered a form of academic misconduct, the response was immediate and dramatic. Within hours of receiving the letter, Sarah's mother called my lawyer's office, apparently in complete shock about what her daughter had been doing. Turns out Sarah had been telling her parents that I was the one harassing her, and that she was afraid for her safety. Her parents arranged for her to move back home immediately and required her to start seeing a therapist as a condition of their continued support. They also made her write formal apologies to my employer, my mother, and several other people she had contacted with false information. The college launched their own investigation and determined that Sarah's behavior constituted a serious violation of their code of conduct. She was suspended for the remainder of the semester and will need to complete a psychological evaluation before they will consider readmitting her. I am not proud of how this ended, but I couldn't just let her destroy my life because she was angry about facing consequences for her own actions. The woman I thought I loved turned out to be capable of incredibly vindictive and manipulative behavior that went far beyond anything I could have imagined. The whole experience has left me questioning my judgment about people and relationships in general. How do you trust someone again after discovering that someone you shared your life with for 3 years saw you as nothing more than a resource to be exploited? But I am also relieved that it is finally over. My work situation has stabilized. My family understands what really happened, and Sarah is getting the professional help she clearly needs. I feel like I can finally start rebuilding my life without constantly looking over my shoulder. Final update: I wasn't planning to post another update, but it has been almost 6 months since everything happened, and I have had some time to process the whole experience. Plus, I have gotten a lot of private messages from people asking how I am doing and whether I have learned anything that might help others avoid similar situations. First, the practical stuff. Sarah has stayed away completely since the legal intervention. Her parents apparently took the situation very seriously and made sure she got ongoing therapy as a condition of their continued support. I heard through mutual friends that she did complete her degree, but at a different school after transferring. I genuinely hope she has gotten the help she needed and learned healthier ways to handle relationships and conflict. As for me, the first few months after everything ended were honestly pretty rough. I went through a period where I questioned every interaction I had ever had with anyone, wondering if other people had been manipulating me without my realizing it. I also felt really isolated since some of our mutual friends had sided with Sarah's initial version of events and stopped talking to me even after the truth came out. I ended up getting some therapy myself, which turned out to be incredibly helpful. My therapist helped me understand that what I had experienced was a form of psychological abuse, and that my reaction to it, both the initial confusion and the later legal response, were completely normal and appropriate. One of the biggest things I learned was about recognizing red flags earlier. Looking back, there were so many signs that Sarah saw our relationship as transactional rather than genuine. The way she would immediately bring up her financial stress whenever I seemed happy about something unrelated to her. How she would get upset if I spent money on anything for myself, but never showed genuine interest in my work or hobbies. The way she isolated me from friends by always having emergencies when I had other plans. But the therapist also helped me understand that being a generous, supportive partner isn't a weakness, even though Sarah tried to make me feel pathetic for caring about her success. The problem wasn't that I was willing to help someone I loved. The problem was that I ignored clear signs that the support wasn't being appreciated or reciprocated. I have started dating again, which honestly felt terrifying at first. I was so paranoid about being used again that I probably came across as cold or distant in early conversations. But I have learned to have better boundaries while still being open to genuine connection. The woman I am seeing now knows the whole story, and she has been incredibly understanding about why I might be sensitive to certain things. She is financially independent and insists on splitting expenses, which initially made me uncomfortable because I had gotten so used to being the provider. But it has actually been amazing to be with someone who wants to contribute equally to our relationship. I have also rebuilt my social life and gotten back into hobbies I had neglected during my relationship with Sarah. I had forgotten how much I enjoyed hiking and photography, and how good it felt to spend time with friends who actually seemed to enjoy my company rather than just tolerating it. The financial situation worked out better than I had expected. The money I had been spending on Sarah's expenses allowed me to build up my savings significantly once I stopped those payments. I was able to put a down payment on a small house and still have an emergency fund for the first time in years. Looking back, I think the hardest part of the whole experience was accepting that someone I would genuinely loved and trusted had seen me so differently than I had seen myself. It is humbling to realize how wrong you can be about someone, even after years of being together. But I am also grateful that I found out when I did, rather than continuing to build a life with someone who had such contempt for me. I cannot imagine how much worse it would have been if I had proposed or if we had gotten married before I learned the truth. I used to think that relationships required one person to sacrifice more than the other, and that being the person willing to sacrifice proved how much you loved someone. Now I understand that healthy relationships involve both people wanting to support each other's growth and happiness, not one person being the giver and the other being the taker. I am in a much better place now than I was 6 months ago, and I am genuinely optimistic about the future. This experience taught me a lot about my own worth and what I should expect from a partner. It was painful, but I am stronger and wiser because of it.